Hi, listeners. I just thought I'd take a moment of your time to let you know that Push2Plat has hit 1 year. That's right, this thing has been going on for 1 year. Who would have thought? Come the 4th of March, we have been lucky enough to speak to over 20 guests across Australia, America, UK, and Europe. We now have a growing listenership. Every month, we've seen a growth rate, especially in the last 3 months, which is fantastic. We have listeners across the whole world now, including Japan, which I think is fantastic. And both myself, Mindi, and Joe really appreciate it. We've had a total of 48 episodes, 3 deep dives. We've had summer sessions with fellow Australians. We've started a spin-off podcast, Push2Plat Level Cap, that's focused purely on trophy and achievements, which supplements our regular Push2Plat show, which is a more deep conversational podcast, as you know. We've created a fun-loving PS Xbox community of awesome humans that continues to grow. And what I wanted to say to you is that we've left you a chair to join us in this community. You can do so via Twitter. You can do so through the Push2Plat Platinum Club, a free community on the PS4. You can jump into the Discord and say hello. So now what I'm asking from you listeners, after a year of hopefully somewhat enjoyable content, is I'm asking if you can help us out. It is a huge amount of work for Mindi, myself, and Joe to maintain this podcast. All that we ask is that you help us in any way by sharing the love. Even if you don't listen on YouTube, come and sub to us there. It's free and it helps us out. Give us a review on iTunes. Give us a review on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on. Rate us if they have that option. Rate us whatever number you think is fair. If you're in a position and you want to get to support us a little deeper, visit our Patreon page. We have ranges from $2 right through to a producer level at $20 per month. If you want to get in contact with us, do. Each week, we are so privileged to speak to wonderful guests. Then through the week, we get to maintain such a fantastic environment through the community and conversation. If you've listened for a while, feel free to reach out. We promise we won't bite. Mostly. So thank you for your time, listeners. Thank you for your support. If you've been with us for a long time, extra special thanks. If this is your first episode, sorry you've had to listen to this long-winded message. But I hope you join us in the Push2Plat community. Game on, game for fun. Let's all earn as many trophies and achievements as we can. And let's have some wonderful, wonderful, deep conversation about our passion about games. Thank you and enjoy the episode.
It's time for Push2Plat, your weekly trophy podcast with Mindi and CJ.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to episode 49 of Push2Plat. I hope you're having a wonderful week. We're reaching you midweek this week, so I hope you've had a great start, and I hope we can help you over the Wednesday hump day, if that is the day you're listening, day of recording. How are you today, Mindi?
Not as bad a week this past week, but slowly but surely.
That's good to hear. I suppose we carry on, don't we?
We do. We try.
Let's see if we can have a bit of a fun distraction for a little while for you and the listeners. So, Mindi, as you know, we've launched this Patreon. We gave a few lucky people, well, really whoever was silly enough, I suppose, to choose this tier to become a Patreon producer of the show. So listeners, that will give them the sort of chance to help us with, maybe come out with some topics and guest suggestions. And look, if that's something that interests you, there's still, of course, places available. But one of the perks, Mindi, was that they got to pick a game for me to play. Now I get a year to play it in, so we don't need to panic here or anything. But they got to choose a game. So right off the bat, Mindy, with my record.
Is it Death Stranding?
Well, before we get to
Like, how can it not be Death Stranding?
before we get to the games, with my record, you're familiar with my play style. What do you think the odds of this happening are over the course of a year?
The odds that the game they pick is Death Stranding, or the odds of you platinuming it?
Well, no, it has to be platted, but they could also pick an Xbox game, which someone has done. So that would be 1,000 gamer score, but it's the same thing. So what do you think?
Again, the odds of you actually doing it, I mean, you better. It's a commitment to the Patreons.
Look, I think so too. So I want to rest assured the Patreons, I will do it. Now let's get into the games, Mindy. There are 3 interesting games. The first one is for Xbox. Now I know this will pique your interest because I would assume you have not played this game because it doesn't have trophies on the PlayStation, even though it's a beloved series for you. And that is the original Assassin's Creed game.
Now that one I did see. Someone suggested it to you. I didn't realize that was for the Patreon thing specifically.
Yeah, so this was nominated by Sprunky. Now this has to be played on the Xbox because, as we said, there are no trophies on the PlayStation. Have you played this game at all yourself?
I have. I did play it on the PS3.
Mm.
It's uh let's just say Assassin's Creed 2 improved it quite a bit. There is a lot, and I mean a lot, of eavesdropping missions in Assassin's Creed 1, as I recall. And if you think there's a lot of them in recent, I don't know if there are any in Origins and Odyssey, but like they've always been there, but there were a lot in the first game.
Yeah, it seems like it's an interesting list. Like it's rated here, listeners, a 4 out of 10, 25 to 35 hours, which will be double for someone of my abilities, I'm sure. There are a few missables here, Mindy, but there's a really bizarre achievement here, if you like, where in the cutscenes there can be a glitch. So like the screen will like glitch or something, and like it's supposed to happen. I'm not exactly sure because I haven't started it. Now you actually have to push a button when that happens to change the camera angle. Now, you have to do it in every single cutscene, I understand, in the game. So I was just reading the guide before, and it just encourages you to mash the buttons in every cutscene, and you should be okay. Possibly. What a bizarre achievement, don't you think?
That's a weird achievement.
Yeah.
That's not an achievement, that's an annoyance.
I would agree. I don't think it's going to add to the game at all, but I don't really care about the camera angle. But that's one thing to watch out. But one thing I will give Mindy. Now, I didn't look at this, but someone, obviously this is an old game. There's quite a few collectibles I understand as well in this thing, flags and all this sort of business. Someone's made one of these interactive maps where you can actually click on it and it will tick off when you've got it. So I think there's a high chance I will do this because I love these type of things. Like,
There's a lot of flags. If I recall correctly, and I could be wrong, I played this literally around the time I played Assassin's Creed 2,
mm,
which was like it was a long time ago. I want to say it was like 2007, 2010. And that game had 100 feathers, I want to say. I think there are more flags. And they're as I recall, they're in like the temple, like they're not all on the overworld. Like there's some in quote dungeons, which is not fun. So you really need to keep an eye on that.
yes, you're selling it to me well. I mean, the only advantage is there's no online achievements, at least, so that's
That's very true.
something to be thankful for. So, look, that's going to be an interesting experience. So, I thank Sprunky for choosing that, and he did say, Mindy, that this is a game that he really loved. So he just wasn't out to bullshit me and bait me. He does really love this game, and he hopes that it will also resonate with me, and I think it'll be great because I've played most of the Assassin's games, but I haven't played the first one, so it will be.
No, you haven't. Oh, maybe on Xbox. I don't know about your Xbox
No,
history.
not all of them, but I played most of them. Yeah, well, not for platinum, just to play the story. Obviously.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, that's what I meant by play. We have a different distinction here, Mindy, in play, obviously. So look, we have that one coming in now. The next one from Zador VP. Now, this is a favorite game of his, Mindy. I'd never heard of this game until he mentioned it. It's a PS2 classic on the PS4. This is Rogue Galaxy. Are you at all familiar with this game?
That's a 505 RPG. if I recall correctly, when I was mentioning 505 when I was talking about like Professor Layton and stuff, I had also forgotten that one. So it was a very, very niche title. I think it's kind of considered a cult game. Not like a cult cult simulator, but like a cult like Shadow Hearts. Like not a lot of people would
Mm.
know it, but those who know it like really love it.
Yes. Yeah. Well, look, he speaks very passionately of it. So it's definitely worth a try. So it's a 5 out of 10 listeners, one playthrough, 80 hours, but there doesn't seem to be any missables. There seems to be some grindy trophies or something, but I mean, that's probably to be expected. 80 hours is getting up there. So he said it would be great after Final Fantasy 12, which makes me nervous. So we shall see how that goes. But that does look interesting. So I'm looking forward to starting that. And then, of course, Mindi, you did guess the third one. It's unsurprising from the Scottish noob. Now, I'm sure he did this to bait me. The Death Stranding. So who would have thought one of us is actually going to play this thing? Is there any chance I could twist your arm in to playing it?
Not a chance. Did you stipulate that it had to be on the main account? Because I'll play, but will not platinum that game if it's for the Patreons.
What I think we could do is I could play it and then I could tell you the whole story in 5 minutes because I think that's what's going to happen. I think it may be that. What I played last time, I didn't get into it fully, but it really didn't. I don't know. Maybe it opens up, but look, it'll be interesting. And now that I have a reason to play it and push through, and one of the things I'm looking most forward to, Mindy, is going back and restarting and counting how many times Kojima's name happens in the opening hour or so. So that's going to be fantastic. At least there's a lot more.
I would say take a shot every time, but you'd be drunk before you start playing.
I was
But you will let me know the total tally,
Yeah,
right?
I was totally thinking yesterday this would make a perfect drinking game, and then I was like, never make it past the first half an hour. His name's just continuous, like. I did think that would be great, but look, there is a fair bit more known about this game now. I know initially it was like 200 hours, and now it's been revised down as people have discovered different things. So I think that will be better. One of the great good things seems to be that you can play the story now on easy, and then just convert it later to hard for the other bits. So that's a particularly good find for someone like myself. So we shall see how that goes. But they're all three pretty strong games. So listeners, if you're sitting there thinking, yeah, well, I'd like to see how CJ goes, I'll bury him with something else. By all means, jump over to the Patreon and have a look. Of course, if you don't want to commit at that level, and I totally understand that, there are other levels that can commit, including the $10 level, Mindy, that will give them access to a special Push to Plat After Dark episode that will be coming up later this month. Of course, if you're listening, all the content will still normally be coming out, other than that episode, for free. And if you don't feel like subbing to us there, you can always help us by subbing on YouTube, telling someone, or writing a review around the traps. So, Mindy, I feel like games today. Why don't we just jump straight in with what you have been playing?
Yes, I do want to talk about games, but I want to go back because I think when we were talking about Rogue Galaxy, I think I said 505 games and I meant level 5. 505 games did a game that I'm currently playing,
Ooh.
but level 5 did Rogue Galaxy. 505 did something else. Sorry.
Excellent.
So what I have been playing. Last time I talked Uncharted Tides Port Royal. I finished that. Everything I said about it in the last podcast is true. It is a quick and easy platinum. It is longer only because I had a really bad week when I was playing it. You can get it done in about 2 hours with a walkthrough. Probably 4 hours without a walkthrough. The big one I played.
Oh, just before we move on, assuming this is the case, but is your walkthrough now available, or?
It is. I
Excellent.
did not hold it to ransom like you suggested.
It's an attractive offer, though, for the future, isn't it? You'll have to consider it. So you said this one's a little bit easier than some of the others. Can you just elaborate on that? Because that piqued my interest, Mindy. How is it easier?
Well, I think I said this last time. Most Artifacts Mighty Trophy lists will say, play the game on expert, never ever use hints, never ever skip mini games. And this list says you can use hints, but only for, only after you've solved 3 or 4 hidden object puzzles. This game says, hey, you can play on casual. And this game says, hey, you can start skipping mini games after you've solved 4 or 5 of them without skipping them. So, really easy. Like all other Artifacts Money games, there is no chapter select. So for things like collectibles need to be done on the same, in the same game. And I don't think it's cumulative. I think it's all you have to do it in one continuous run. I've never actually checked that because I've never wanted to.
Well, hang on a second here. Now, you play these games when you're writing the walkthrough on an alternate account, don't you?
Yes, I
So
do.
that you can then come back for a speed run on your main account.
That is correct.
That's what I thought. So you could always test it, I suppose. I suppose you'd risk your speed run though.
I was thinking that while I was saying it is that I could test it on an alt account and just. But what I want to do is like I want to check those big cumulative trophies. Like, is the trophy for every collectible going to pop? I'll try to with save backups. I'll try to test that next time. Someone remind me whenever the next Artifacts Monday game comes out.
Good. Now I know we've talked Art Monday for quite a bit, but I've never asked you this, and I've been wondering about it for a while with these speed runs because you're usually well ahead of the curve with the times and stuff. Is it that you actually have the guide memorized when you take this run because you've written it, or do you still need to reference notes and stuff?
Sometimes I need to reference notes. I think I mentioned this briefly when you asked me more or less the same question about Leisure Suit Larry.
Mm,
It's that I've literally just done it. Depending on when, time of day or whatever, I might move immediately from my alt account to the main account and just power through it because I've just done it. It's fresh in my mind. It's the same reason you do your stack and then you immediately do another stack,
yes. Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's true.
It's
That
because
is
you've
true.
just done it. But I don't remember everything in terms of like where I need to go and what I need to pick up. Sure, but a lot of some of the mini games, I'll have to look down and be like, what was the solution? Because it's a lot of movements, like specific movements you need to do.
Mm.
Otherwise, I'll just kind of keep it open and I'll glance if I don't remember exactly what's coming up.
This next one, I'm hoping you're going to talk on this in a bit of depth because I've been sitting on the fence for this one, but I want to know how this method works for The Sims 4 and how it all comes about.
I did play The Sims 4 and I'm annoyed because I actually bought this game. This is not because it
Ah.
came free. I actually bought this game when it was on sale for like $20 because I did the Sims 3 pets and I looked at the Sims 4 and Sims 4 the trophy guide was posted on PlayStationTrophies.org. I believe came out before the PSNP guide and it laid it out very nicely in a fairly time efficient way that it would take you like 25 hours to platinum the game, which is pretty good. I definitely spent more than that on Sims 3 pets. And I looked and I was like, "Oh, look at all the trophies. They're so punny. That's fantastic." And I love me some puns, dude. I really do. Um, but I kept putting it off because I'm like, "Oh, it's gonna be such a grind," and I
Yeah.
can't just leave it. Like this is. I understand that some people would be like, "I'm gonna play this a long time, over a long time with 3 or 4 other games." And I just knew I couldn't because I remember Sims 3 Pets. That's all I played for like 2 weeks. And I'm like, I don't want to do that again with this big of a game where it's kind of
Mhm,
basically micromanagement the
mhm.
game, right? Like that's what The Sims is. So I kept putting it off and kept putting it off. And then the most amazing thing happened is that they updated the game and put in a feature where you could download like fan created assets. And all of a sudden, it turned this AAA game into a spam game,
Does not
which
happen
you really
often.
don't see that
No,
often.
no.
You really don't see it that often. So basically, how this works is, and here's a forewarning, you have to have an EA account to do this, which is easy to sign up for. It's free. I already have one because I played that Simpsons tapping mobile game. You know what I'm talking about?
Mhm.
So I already had that because you need one to save your city or whatever. So I just logged into that, even though it's not tied to my PSN account. It's a different email address because I'm not stupid. It worked just fine with my system, had zero problem. So you log into your ES account, and then all of a sudden you can access this. They call it the gallery, but I guess it is a gallery because you're not buying anything. So what you can do is you can go and search for specific sim types or creators and download whatever they have put up on offer. So go to the gallery and some amazing people on PSNP. It looks like it was spearheaded by someone named Malachen,
Mhm.
because Malachen also wrote the kind of the text walkthrough guide to do all this, but also with help from someone named Naomi Len, and a little bit of credit to NZ Joey 89 have made sim families that will cover these really long, grindy trophies you have to do. So, for example, there's a trophy for hitting the highest level in every career path of the game. Between Malakan and Naomi Len, they have created families that are 2 or 3 sim days away from hitting that top level. So all you have to do is play for 20, 30 minutes and, long enough to get them to go to work, because they don't go to work every day. They work twice a week. So sometimes you can hit a bad roll and, it's a Monday and your sim doesn't work till Thursday. You know what I mean? So that's why the time can fluctuate on this quite a bit, from like it took me around 4 hours. It can range from about 2 to 4 hours for spam. But you send them off and the trophy will unlock. It's really a massive time saver.
So with this, I know there's a ton of DLC packs for this that are paid. You don't need any of these, do you? So it's
None of
all
them
just
are
the
needed.
base game, which is free there on Plus. And then, like with this method, then now I see there's a video and stuff. Is that what you use? You're just using the video guide, or is there? What would you recommend here? Is there a text guide, or what's the?
I recommend on PSNP, like I said, Malakin has written out kind of a text walkthrough, but
Mhm.
has also linked some videos so just in case you don't really understand the words he's saying, you can see the exact actions that you need to do. I used mostly the text guide. There were a couple of things because I chose to skip the tutorial, the game tutorial, that I needed to look at the video to see how to do it. But generally speaking, it's pretty easy to screw around with this game and figure out what you need to do. I think the only time I really needed help with the video was figuring out how to get my sim to leave the house, like to move out basically, because it's all done through a cell phone under like weird settings. It's under like social media. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to hit social media and obviously I'm going to think that's where I'm going to find the my sim is going to move out option. Like that doesn't make any sense to me.
See, I see one of the hardest trophies in this game was to get the sim to give birth to triplets, but I think that's one of the first trophies you get now, isn't it? Under this method, or perhaps that's where I started in the.
It is. I will say those names I mentioned, none of them have that trope. You specifically have to look for triplet in there'll be a search bar. You specifically have to look for triplet.
Mhm.
I don't know if there's still a little bit of randomness on it, or some, people are trolling or whatever, but it took me the first one I did had, and it was the one that was the most downloaded, so I got a figure. The one that's most downloaded is the one that people are using for this, right? And it came with 3 pregnant women.
Mm.
And so I thought, "Oh, that's funny. They all have triplets." No, they all just give birth to 1 kid. That was annoying and a waste of my time. And then I think the second one I downloaded was I believe it was an African American woman, and she gave birth to triplets. So if anyone's searching, maybe stay away from the 3 girls and then look for the African American lady. And she'll give birth to I believe that was the one I definitely downloaded that one and one other one just so I don't have to go through this again and get another, so I had one on standby, and I had a ditzy blonde and an African American, and I don't remember which one I played first, but whichever one it was gave birth to a triplet.
Yeah.
So I got that pretty early on, yeah.
So there you go, listeners. If you're looking for a new ultra rare platinum for about a week, then you want to get on that straight away, because that's going to be, by the sound of it, pretty common in the next couple of weeks as more people get onto that.
I don't know. I was actually thinking about that because, this did go on Plus. So even easy games that go on Plus are still rarer than they could or probably should be, because a lot of people don't care. They just want to play it. So I think ultra rare. Oh, Ultraware stops around 6%. So yeah, maybe not so long anymore, but I think it'll always be rare. I don't think it'll ever become uncommon. I think it'll hover in that rare area.
Well, look, who cannot say that EA are for the players? Well done. That's fantastic, isn't it? let's let's move let's move on. Now, this next one interests me as well. What did you think of this? Just a short disclaimer here, listeners. Mindi accidentally mentions Lost Ember, but she is referring to the first tree when she's talking here about this game.
Oh yeah, I played Spirit of the. I had to think about what I played. I played, which is a pretty good indication of
Yeah.
how I felt about it. I played Spirit of the North. It's not bad.
Hmm.
I liked it more than Lost Ember, but also
Oh,
it's gorgeous. It really is. But it goes on too long,
yeah.
and it really needed a map. It desperately needed a map.
This is the one with a lot of collectibles, isn't it? That nothing's marked. Yeah.
Nothing's well, and Lost Ember was like that too.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't think there were as many collectibles in this as there were in Lost Ember, because Lost Ember had all the stars. But this one, yeah, it took a little more exploration to find the collectibles, which are these dead sages. And I really think that that actually should have been just the story. I think it was a mistake to make them optional collectibles, because otherwise there's really no story to it. If you don't make the story about this fox who has some sort of spiritual power, who's like reuniting these mystic staffs with the bodies of these dead shamans or whatever, there's no story. At least that I can remember. I'm pretty sure there's not. But if you take those collectibles and you make that the story, it's more interesting, it's more compelling. I will say this game has a horrendous final level. And it's where you really need. Did you get to the final level?
No, I didn't. No, well, not yet.
You really need a map in that one. They really needed a map and they didn't give it to you. And there's a horrible trophy where there are these 28 shamans that you've been finding throughout the game. Yeah. And then in the final stage, you're in, let's call it the afterlife. It's like a weird realm. And that's not really a spoiler because you've been in the spirit world pretty early on in the game. It's one of those kind
Mhm.
of surreal games. But you're in this like white forest,
Mhm.
right? And it's massive, massive open area. And you have to find and interact with all of these shamans that you've just rescued. It is really annoying because there's no maps, there's no indication that, oh, is this the same shaman? Because they all look the same, right? They don't even look different. It's a little easier in some areas where there's clear architecture for you to get your bearings. But like half of them are just wandering in these
Mm.
woods that are
Mhm.
very similar. It's annoying. It's no business being in the game. And again, they needed a map. So I don't know what it was about last year with Fox games with no map, but there should not be more than 0 of them, and there were 2.
The problem I had with this game was it did come out a little bit before Lost Ember, but not much before. Within, I want to say within a month, but maybe slightly more. And these games for me, they're like experience games. I feel like I understand there's trophies for collecting things and you have to pay a lot of attention, but I play them maybe for more the experience. And I played a bit of this and then I started Lost Ember and I found the experience for me to be better in that game. Again, not talking trophies, not collectibles, because I know there's a lot of annoying things in that game as well. But just and I know it's subject, it's dependent on the player, but I thought there was a lot more in Lost Ember. And I don't know, like this isn't minimalistic, but it's also it was sort of struck me, and maybe it opens up as you say towards the end, but it was a bit linear, and it just, as you said, there was no real story unless you were picking up things, and I don't know, it didn't really do it for me, but that's a personal thing. But one thing also that detracted from me is that there was no level select in this, was there? So am I right in that?
No, there
Oh, there
is.
is. Okay.
There is.
Oh, I didn't know. Okay,
Yeah.
but that might change my opinion slightly because I know when I was playing it, I was like, "Wow!" So if you miss something, you'd have to start again, and yeah, okay. But I didn't know that.
No, it's Lost Ember that doesn't have level select.
Yes, that's correct on that one.
So you have to get all of those collectibles. So basically what you have is what one game does right, the other game doesn't. Like if you merge these games, it'd be a really good game. Lost
Yeah.
Ember has a good compelling story. It keeps your interest
Yes.
with terrible collectibles and no chapter select. And then Spirit of the North has a terrible collectible system that should be the story. Like the collectibles are more interesting, but they should be the story, and has chapter select, but neither game has a map. Like
Yeah.
combine those two games, give it a map, and you got something really
Yeah.
special. But you're right, they are experience games.
I'm just thinking to 2021 where we get Spirit of the Lost Ember, and it'll just be fantastic. The two will merge. That would be great.
That's not a bad name for an indie game,
It's not.
actually.
I'm sure there's probably something already out there with that name. Probably about something completely different. Now I see you played the classic Hoggy 2. I know you've played this before. I'm sure it left a lasting impression, as Hoggy 2 always does on a person.
Well, and especially does because that was my leap day plat. I got all those trophies on February 29th.
Congratulations. That's a good choice too. Nice. Not too stressful. And
No, not at all. Still a fun, cute little game.
good. Now this next one interests me because everyone says you should play it, and I'm not getting any closer to it. But it warms my heart, Mindy, to see that you've started Indivisible, and I'm very interested in what you think.
Indivisible is a action RPG. It's 2.5D, gorgeous animated, like hand drawn animated sprites, I suppose. Absolutely gorgeous. You play as this girl named Ajna, who is it's actually very funny. So she's like, you think RPG, JRPG, because this is more of a JRPG than a Western RPG. You think kind of anime tropey, and I guess it's there a little bit with her, but she's like a tomboy. She's kind of just doing her own thing. She's not that kind of, you think JRPG female protagonists, you think they're either like the strong army commander who's defected, or the kind of meek or weak little damsel in distress who's fighting for her own. You know what I mean? She's not any of those. Like she comes off more like a modern day Disney heroine, to be honest. That kind of I'm rebellious, I'm not going to go with the way things are. And she kind of comes off like Mulan, actually. Like even her backstory, her entire, and this is in the prologue, so no, not really a spoiler here, but her village is burned to the ground and everyone dies. So she's like, I'm gonna go get my revenge. Right? The thing about this game, the way the battle system works is weird. It's not like a standard JRPG where you get the kind of command menu per person, like, turn-based. And it's not really in an action RPG, you would have free control of your characters and run around and attack and, stuff like that. There's a timer bar under each character. There's, 4 people in your party. Each party member is assigned one button on the controller, so, triangle, circle, X, and square. And they have little icons under that shows how many times you can attack before their bar needs to fill back up. And there's combinations of attacks where you attack and you hold the up arrow, and that does one kind of attack, and a down arrow and it does another kind of attack. It takes some getting used to. And the problem is there's so many freaking characters that you can swap in and out that it gets overwhelming very quickly. So find a party,
Yeah.
and granted, I'm only 3 or 4 worlds into this game. Find a party you like and stick with it. Everyone who is not in your party will level up when you are. I think it's a little slower than if you're an active party, but they do level up. So you don't have to worry that all of a sudden this character I picked up who's like the wind elemental is going to be level 1 when I need them to be higher for this boss that's obviously weak to wind. It's not like that. That having been said,
Hmm. Hmm.
there are some kind of brutal difficulty curves in this game. This is not hard, and I'm sure at some point I'll find something that'll break the combat in this game, but it's not. There are points where you will probably need to try again because there's a lot of full party attacks, and the first 2 characters you get are awful because they have no HP that can be killed in one. It's awful. Like they can be killed very, very, very easily, which is not
It's
good.
frustrating.
It is I was frustrated in the beginning, and I was like, "Oh god, I hope that's not the game. I hope this is not the game going through."
Mm.
But then I kinda, I figured out more of the combat system. I got a little more used to the timing of it all, and it's gotten better. You definitely wanna look for I don't remember what they're called, but they're these red stones that you can use to up your attack or up your defense. Oh, yeah, CJ, there's Metroidvania elements in this game. Yeah, there
Wow,
are.
that does not surprise me.
Yeah,
At least,
there are.
at least our little friend doesn't make an appearance in this, though. I'm pretty sure.
Which little friend? Mega Man?
Yes, yes. Wouldn't surprise me if they have him on a picture in the wall in some background somewhere. Maybe
Yeah,
towards the
right.
end. You just walk past him. Yeah. This game, I'll be interested when you get to the end because I understand the trophy list is fairly straightforward, but then I think there's some sort of possibly a save manipulation at the end in the way you put your things in your levels or something. I'm not 100% sure on that. So we'll find out.
So I have looked at there's a trophy or there's an achievement guide for it that's a little bare bones over on Xbox 360 achievements.org. And I can't really criticize it because this guy writes a ton of RPG trophy guides, mostly for Chemco stuff. I do wish he had expanded more on this game in particular, but I can't really criticize too much. But if I am understanding what you're referring to, that's referring to if you don't get all of those little upgrade crystals I was talking to you about,
Yeah.
where you can back up your save, unlock put all your crystals into, I think he said defense, unlock that trophy,
Hmm.
reload your save, put all your crystals in attack because he says attack is more important than defense. I don't know if I believe that at this point based on my own experiences. Like I said, maybe later on there's better characters where you're just a defense powerhouse and you don't have to worry so much about, being taken out in 1 or 2 hits. I don't know.
Yeah.
But my understanding is the criticism of this game is there is a lot of backtracking. Like I said, these Metroidvania elements. But I'm having fun so far. Some of the platforming is a little annoying. I'm sticking with it for sure, and I'll update when I'm close to the end of it. And then I have 2 games. I know this is going on long. I have 2 games I wanna talk about that are not on my trophy list and will never be on my trophy list, but I did play them.
Yes, I'm in suspense. Share, share. I'm wondering what can be that listeners that would not go on your trophy list. It's such a foreign concept to me, Mindy. So I'm feeling that perhaps you're a little worried about trying to finish them. Is that why? So enlighten us.
I like your sarcasm there because there's a lot of stuff I wouldn't put on my trophy
Well, no,
list.
my trophy list.
But this one in particular was on my trophy list, and I deleted it before I earned a single trophy
Wow,
because it was
that
awful,
says a lot.
which is sad because I didn't want it to be
So
awful.
so what is this
I
game?
really didn't.
Which one?
This is the Lost Legends of Redwall: The Scout.
Oh yeah, yep.
So it's that Redwall game that came out. So Redwall, are you familiar with Redwall?
Not really. I know that they're mice, aren't they?
They're mice. They're fantasy like children's books. They started in like the 80s and I think they're still ongoing. They might have stopped. But it's like a group of mice that live in an abbey, Redwall Abbey, I believe. I read that like we read the first book in school and I think I read the next 2 or 3 and I've just forgotten everything about it. But it was like a big ongoing thing with massive lore because there were like 20 books, something like that. They're very beloved. I totally understand it. Why people like it. And this game came out, and I think the game came out last year or the year before, and then it was ported to PS4. It's clear from the beginning of the game that it was made with love. There's a lot of writing in it that I could tell that that's where they put all their focus. And the problem is the game is awful. Like it controls like a PS2 game. Not even PS3, PS2 game. It's really jarring.
Oh,
Things are popping in and out.
yeah.
There's a lot of it doesn't feel stable. Everything feels very floaty. It feels buggy. It's not fun to play. And so probably 20 minutes in, I was like, "No, I'm done." I double checked my trophy list. I was like, "Oh, I still haven't unlocked anything. Goodbye." Which is a shame because like I said, the writing is pretty solid, and you could tell that that's what they were putting their effort.
It plays as like a is it play like a point and click, or how does it actually play the game?
No, not at all.
Oh, okay.
It's a third person kind of exploration action game.
Oh, okay. So then, yes, that's a big investment if you're not enjoying it then, and if the controls are dreadful.
Yeah, and well, and apparently it's not that long, but it just I mean, I think there's a real reason that even though Redwall is a pretty popular license, I think there's only 5 platinum trophy earners because it's not that difficult.
Hmm.
Like someone actually first of all, the problem is there's next to nothing out there about this game. But I did find some guy on YouTube who had done a video walkthrough of the entire game, and it's actually really bad because this guy clearly doesn't do, like, Let's Plays, because the game volume was all the way up and his mic volume was low, so you really had to, try to listen to what he was saying. But he did do a video walkthrough of the whole game, and he said, "If you do this, you'll get the trophy, and then I'm gonna show you right now where this is so you can get all the collectibles he got." So and I can't remember his name off the top of my head, so all power to him. And I looked at that, I'm like, "This is not very long at all. This is probably a 4 or 5-hour platinum." But it's just so janky of a game that I was like, "I do not wanna put 5 to 7 hours into this game. I can't." Like, I'm losing it after the first 20, 30 minutes. I can't do this.
I totally understand. That's a good warning.
And this is post patch 101. Like, it was worse, and they patched it into this. It is a real shame. I was gonna say, it is also episodic, and there is another game coming out, and so maybe it's gotten better. Maybe they were
Uh,
just kinda like, "Well, let's focus on making the second game better." I'm not
yeah.
closed off to the idea of looking at the second game, but I think this one's a loss for me.
We will anticipate the second game, see if it improves.
And then the last thing I played this week, I actually played earlier today, and it was the Final Fantasy 7 Remake Demo.
Oh, yes.
And so that will never be on my profile because, it didn't have trophies.
So how was all 2 minutes of the remake they've been working on for the last 50 years?
I know, right? Like, it would
Mm.
not surprise me in the least if this is all that they had done, to be quite honest.
So how much of it is there? Like I haven't played it, so how much?
So it's the first mission of the game. So it's when you haven't played Final Fantasy 7, have you?
No.
Okay, so it's when it's the first, let's call it, chapter of the game where Cloud goes in to destroy the Mako reactor with the resistance members. So it basically takes you through the tutorial, some combat battles, and the first major boss battle of the game to take you out into it's the prologue of the game, basically, let's say.
That sounds like a decent chunk for free to try. Yeah.
It is. It'll take you probably hour and a half if you're actually running around and trying to find everything, probably an hour and a half.
Because this is not tied up in having to pre-order the game, is it? This is just available for anyone?
Correct. If you go to the PlayStation Store and just search demo,
Okay.
go to the demos category, it's free for everyone.
So we probably want to tread a little carefully here because I assume there'll be people like me that will intend to play this. So that's the question I sort of want to ask you now, because obviously you've played Final Fantasy VII before, so there's nothing you know what's going on or whatever. Do you think for someone that hasn't played it, you're better off just to wait now, or would you give the demo a try just to get a feel for it?
Give the demo a try to get a feel for it. I will say, and this is interesting because I've been a little hesitant about this remake because they've turned it into more of an action RPG where you have free, your characters run, because this is a turn-based RPG. This was a wait for the bar to fill up, choose your action, take your time, turn-based RPG. And they've turned it into more of a free roaming one where you control your characters, you actively dodge, things like that. And when I started the
So you're telling me this is like Final Fantasy 15-7?
well, I was going to ask you that if that's how 15 played.
Yes, yeah. I think there's similarities by the sound of it. Yeah.
So what was interesting to me though was at the title screen, it looks like they kept in the classic battle, like the classic turn-based from the original game. It's just not something you can play in the demo. But a lot of it is shot for shot. How else can I put things? So here are some things that I'm still not sure about. First of all, it's gorgeous. I cannot deny it is gorgeous. There were points where I was just thinking about stuff that was gonna come later in the game, like, "Oh, I can't wait to see how they do this." Because the problem is, and I'll say not a lot of people say it, I will say that Final Fantasy VII, I like it a lot, but it is damn near unplayable. It really is, because it was they were really pushing it, polygons had just been become a thing, and there's so many times where you don't know what you're looking at, and you really have to kind of fumble around to figure out where you're going and how to access these areas you need to get to. So I'm being a little I'm overstating it a bit when I say unplayable, but it is difficult to play now, and not because of an actual game difficulty, but just because of the environments and stuff.
Hmm.
Anyway, it is very gorgeous. It is easier to navigate. My couple of my problems are that they have, for no reason, I guess to make it more fluid in the kind of active combat, they've started classifying enemies as, some characters can't reach certain enemies, which was never an issue in the original game. But in this one, you control Cloud and you control Barrett for part of it. And Barrett is the guy with the massive machine gun on his arm. I don't know if you've or Gatling gun on his arm. I don't know if you've seen pictures. But there are enemies that are a little higher up, and the game says only Barrett can reach these enemies because he's got a gun and not a sword, right? And I'm like, okay, that's annoying to have to track all that during active time, but okay, I'll deal with it. But then they start showing Cloud doing the anime guy thing of like his sword attack and he's leaping 6 feet in the air, or he's platforming 10 feet in the air from a crumbling platform. I'm like, you could have reached that sentry and you're telling me I had to shoot it? Like, come on, guys. Really?
I can see this game's gonna hold problems for you.
I think it will. And it comes down to, can I play it with the classic turn base, because that's what I want. But I understand why they did this kind of Final Fantasy 15/7, like you said. I understand why they've done it, but I kind of don't want that.
It's a funny trend because the further they go this way to 15, I don't think they can come back. Like, I know we're seeing Yakuza is adding some turn-based for the first time in their new release, but I think this, I mean, it's going down this Assassin's Creed route, it's going down the AAA route, and it's, yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they offer the other style as well, as you say, but I think perhaps this is the future direction.
And it certainly looks like they intend to. Like I said, when you start the demo, you get the main title screen and it says like combat is like classic, easy, and normal. And classic,
Hmm.
you can't select it, but and then normal's the only thing you play on. Couple other things, they really so Barrett is kind of a racist character. Barrett's this big black guy with the Gatling gun arm, and I don't know if it was the translation or if it was the Japanese viewing African Americans at the time, or some combination. I don't know, but they clearly got some inspiration from like Mr. T, right? And they really leaned on that hard for the voice, because none of these were voice acted either in the original game, but they are now. And they really leaned on the Barrett is Mr. T thing in this game. And I we'll see what happens. Let's put it that way. We'll see what happens.
To be honest, I hope we live long enough to see beyond the first episode or first section.
I know, right?
I'm not sure how long
Well, and
how
it's
long this is
going to
going to
be, and
take.
I realized while I was playing, this game is going to be massive,
Mm.
because I remember just how much there was in the original game. And then, like I said, while I was playing, I was thinking about other parts of the game, and I was like, Jesus, even for a PS4, like a PS4 disc,
Yeah,
this is gonna be huge. This would be unless they've seriously cut down on other stuff later in the game. This is going to be massive.
yeah,
Like, it might be like Red Dead Redemption 2, where there's like an install disc and a play disc,
yeah.
and it's loading parts of the game on the fly from that second disc. Especially because they beefed up the first boss battle of the game is against this kind of scorpion guard, which is actually a big machine. Holy cow, that
Mhm.
thing, usually I have no problem with that thing. That thing had the same attacks you would find in the normal game, but just a lot more devastating. It seemed to have more. It seemed to have kind of stages in the battle, and it put up like a healing barrier that was difficult to target. That's another thing, is that at least in the original game, like, easy to switch between the targets of things you want to hit. This one, it's not. Like, the game makes it seem like it's easy, but when they're all clustered together onto the same enemy, it's actually quite difficult
Mm.
to make sure you're targeting the right thing. So that's something to watch out for, and hopefully they get better at that.
So that's a common problem in 15 as well, that it can that can occur. It almost becomes a mash fest. But see, I think it's interesting because I mean, they're in no rush now. You know, I think in Final Fantasy 16 is nowhere in the horizon, and 14 is having a massive resurgence now, and they've already come out and said there'll be at least two more major expansions. So that cash cow continues, and with Bethesda doubling down on Elder Scrolls as well coming up, this might be their main project for the next 20 years potentially. The money is secured in their in their other games. So I mean, for the gamer, I suppose that's a bit of a it's unfortunate or whatever it is, but it almost reeks like this is going to be not a vanity project, but this is going to be a work of great magnitude, and therefore it's going to happen in its own time. And the only problem with a company that has a lot of money doing this is that it could take a long, long time. So as hopefully we are still able to play it in its completion.
Well, I don't know, because it's supposed to come out in
The
April.
first part is going to come out in April, but it's going to be across 3 parts.
Oh, that's
So
right. They're not doing the whole thing
no,
at
no,
once,
no,
are
it's
they?
going to be a massive long term project. As I said, and predominantly because they're obviously not stretched for money, so they can afford to do it like this. So it will be interesting knowing that, Mindy, that it's coming out in 3 parts and it's undeterminable. Would that factor into your decision to play the first part now, or knowing that you're not going to get the other parts for some time?
So for me, it comes down twofold. One, trophies. If they're gonna put all 3 parts trophies under one list, absolutely will not on my main. And really,
Hmm.
it'll come down to, when am I do I play it on my main or do I play it on my alt? If everything's under one trophy list, I'll get the first part and play it on an alt account,
Yes.
because I don't want to take the blues and bullet chance, right?
No. No. Yes.
That it'll
Yeah.
never be finished and I've got this incomplete trophy on my list. Because I had forgotten until you brought it up that it is going to be in 3 parts, that knocks it down. This is not going to be a day one for me, but it was going to be pretty close. But that knocks it down considerably on my backlog, or on my kind of immediate backlog list. Because knowing, well, I can play this, but then I gotta wait another 2 years. You know what I mean? And quite possibly, quite probably, another system. So I can't imagine all 3 parts would be on PS4. I believe that at some point Square Enix will say, we're just gonna put this on the PS5, and then it's gonna follow the trend of, well, we'll just port the other 2 parts on the PS5. So at that point, why wouldn't I do it just all on the PS5?
See, that's a good point. And see, why I'm interested in asking you that is I know you've played 7, so I know you know how the story goes through completion, but for someone like me, that's going to be a hard stop. Doesn't matter what they do, that's going to be a hard stop. And then what do I do? Do I go and play the old game to find out what happens? Do I go and watch a video, or do I just stop for the number of years it takes? So I wonder. I imagine for returning gamers that have played this, perhaps that's not such a big issue. But for someone that hasn't started it, I
Mhm.
think that's also something to consider, especially considering how much stuff is coming out. But I mean, with Square also porting all Final Fantasy across to Xbox now, then they're not going to be short of money in this series. So it almost reeks like a dream situation with Sony. They'll just give them the money and the time they need, which like it's a lovely idea as well. But yeah, it's interesting. I think having heard you say that about the demo, I think I'll personally now wait, but it'll be an interesting decision to make, and it's a decision that's coming around soon, isn't it? Because the first part is being released fairly soon.
It is, and it sounds like I'm really crapping on the demo, and I'm really not. I think everyone should try the demo. By the way, you can only get from what I understand, you can only get the demo until the game comes out,
Yeah,
and then they're taking it off.
yeah. Mm.
So this very much is a timed thing.
Yeah.
Some things I will say in the game's favor. Final Fantasy VII has a confusing story. It has a very twisty story that I think mostly with the limitations of the PS1 at the time, they tried to tell it very visually, very cinematically, and with the limitations of the system, it comes off as more confusing. I already noticed a couple of things in this demo. CJ, you'll have no idea, but people like Zador, people who know this story, will pick up on. They added a couple little things to the
Mm.
demo that give me hope that the story will not be so confusing this time around, that make the cinematic way they're telling the story make more sense. I'm speaking very broadly here because I don't want to spoil anything. So I will say that in its favor.
Mm.
I'm interested to see what they do with that. And also I want to mention a little Easter egg because it's very active RPG. There's no like end of battle stats screen, where you do your, figure out what items you want to take and how much XP you got and stuff like that. But because of that, you don't get the classic, da 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 da, the battle over music.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
And so it's a little bit of a bummer, but then I fought one battle, like, near the end of the game or near the end of the demo, and right after that, Barrett goes, "Du du 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 du." I was so happy.
The funniest thing is because I started in reverse with Final Fantasy. So I started with 15, and the Chocobo theme and all that, they're fully orchestrated, and like they're fleshed out or whatever, and some modern or whatever. And I was like, these tunes are really awesome. And then when I went back to 14, and especially in the new expansion, they fleshed out the music score a lot more even, but in the first one there were some big numbers, but overall, most of it's synthesized. And I realized that the tunes are the same. And I know for you this is obvious or whatever. They've been around forever. But for me, it's such a funny thing. So, and now playing 14, of course, whenever you finish a quest or a trial, you always get that little tune completion. So it's a great hook.
Last thing I'll say about and maybe you can assuage my worry here, but last thing I'll say about this and Indivisible, come to think about it, is that there don't seem to be random battles. Like, in the original game, you'd just be walking around and there's no enemies on the screen, but you'd be sucked into random battles, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to be that way in this game and in Indivisible. Is that the enemies? It's more like Chrono Trigger, where the enemies are right on screen, and if you can avoid, if you can sidestep them, then you sidestep them. So there don't seem to be options to power level, which can be a
Oh,
huge
I see what
problem
you're
for
saying.
people who maybe why I had problems with the boss at the beginning is because I would run around in the Mako base for a bit and level up, gain a couple of
Mm.
levels and then go do the boss battle. You know what I mean? Maybe in FF15 you could do that.
Yeah, no, you definitely you can. Yeah, yeah, and run around. Yeah, that's an interesting point. But I mean, maybe that's going to come as well. Maybe that's not all in yet, or maybe they're holding some back. We'll have to see, I suppose.
And I'm hoping there will be at least the option to turn that on,
Yeah, yeah.
because otherwise it could be a problem. Like it gave me in the demo, it gave me a bunch of potions,
Hmm.
and I used like 2/3 of them during that boss fight. And I'm like, they clearly put these potions in because this is the demo. You know what I mean? Like I do not expect all of these chests to be here in the main game.
Well, there you go, listeners. You can try it for free. That was our Final Fantasy VII demo deep dive by Mindi. But it'll be interesting, Mindi, to hear other people's opinions and to see what happens when that does come out there. So, is there anything else you'd like to throw, or shall we?
That is all I've played. I will say it just made me want a Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy VI remake more, and that's all I'll say.
Could be waiting a while for that.
Well, because Chrono Trigger had that idea. It had that, you run around, you can avoid enemies if you want. Really makes me want to see what they can do with their older 2D RPGs, JRPGs, if they were to take this kind of massive scale remake.
I'm not a big fan of those forced instances. I do like running around as well. So it just depends. It depends how often they hit. I think can get very, very frustrating. But look, let's move on then. So listeners, look, I have a lot of little bits, I suppose, to chuck at you. And I'm gonna throw a warning out for my first one here, Mindy. And this is this Vasilis game. I throw it out because I imagine you will probably play this at some point. I'm hoping so, and then you can tell me what the hell was going on, because it's a very strange game. So my warning for this game is just probably don't play it on Vita. I know I don't believe it's a cross-buy anyway, so you're making a choice whether you play it on PS4 or Vita. There's separate stacks, but the load times on Vita are just unbelievable. And then also, it never crashed on me, but it chugs like something else in the middle. I won't go into it, but a particular scene where I thought the Vita had died. Like, so I don't know. It's going to be like, it's going to add substantial amount of time to the game playing it on Vita as opposed to PS4. But, other than that,
Oh, this is that kind of looks like a pencil on paper drawn RPG, not RPG, point and click, right?
yeah, like the art style is good, but it's just the load times. It's a killer, and because the problem is it loads in every screen, and you're moving back and forth between different areas a lot. So it's continual. Like like I had a guide up at one point, and I had to stop it like all the time because I'm sure the guide played it. It was an Xbox guide, so I'm sure they played it on the main system. So as it would be with PS4, the load times were much snappier. But yeah, substantially like 20 seconds plus on some of the screens, and they're just black screens or whatever. So you don't even know if the Vita's still alive. But look, that aside, I don't know, listeners, what the hell was going on. I read all the stuff. I understand the premise that you're looking for your husband, but it just gets weirder and weirder. There's some stuff here, Mindy, about like a resistance and this stuff. And look, I'm not convinced. I think I don't know. Look, it's fine. It's fine for what it is. If you are going to play it, they're sort of collectible hobos, I suppose, which is a lovely idea. These people on the ground that you have to speak to, and they're not marked on the map, so you just have to find them. But I would recommend doing that because you're not going to want to go back to the areas because a lot of times they don't add anything to the story because they all say the same line, which is again I don't really understand. But look, that could just be me. The art style, it's interesting. As Mindy says there, it's good, but the story overall, I don't think there's much there. There is, and again, I haven't checked a guide fully for this, but there is, when you finish the game, an option to go back and play other days. So I'm assuming if you miss the collectible hobos, you can go back and find them that way, but I'm not sure. So,
That just sounds so
well,
wrong.
that's what they are, though. Like the game is weird, Mindy. Like there's just people without heads for no reason, and then just doing stuff in the background, and I don't know what's going on. Like maybe I just completely missed the point of it. I'm not sure. But anyway, if you play it and you find something there, listeners, please educate me. I would love to love to know. I'll throw out a racing game, Mindy. This Overpass. So and I'll throw this out because it starts off. So most racing games, you have a tutorial at the start. It usually involves, if it's a rally game, you drive a section of the thing and the voice talks to you, usually a lovely English lady voice talks to you about the different parts of the car. Or, if it's a track game, maybe there's no voice, you just run the track or whatever. But this game, this game starts off with this hillbilly American guy, very well spoken or whatever. And it's an elaborate tutorial. Like the tutorial is like 20 minutes long or something because there's a lot going on in this game. But he just talks super slowly. So he'll be like, and now you're coming up to the rocks. You will be accelerating. And by the time he's finished it, you've either, you've made it up or something and you're on to the next bit. So he's sort of always behind you, which, look, it's hilarious. I found it hilarious. But that aside, it's a very interesting simulator game. It is definitely a simulator game. It is not easy. You can adjust all elements of your truck. There's also ATVs and other vehicles you can acquire through. It's a methodical racing game in that you're racing the clock, but it's not a game where you're trying to go as fast as you can. You're obviously going up obstacles, you're going up verticals and slopes, and you're really trying to find a path. It's very easy to get the car stuck, to get the axle smashed. The damage is real in this game. So there's a lot of resetting. The races, the tracks, they range from 6 to 10 minutes in the sort of time suggestion. But the first time you do it, you can spend way longer than that because there are sections you can't even see a way up. And there's no skip for the sections, obviously. So look, obviously, if you're interested in these sort of games, this appeals to you. I don't know that this will have a mass appeal because the first track is sort of easy, but from then on, it gets progressively difficult and frustrating. I think, but having said that, I think it's great. It looks beautiful or whatever else. It does have an online component if you'd rather just play against other people and not against the clock, if you like. There are no head-to-head races in the career that I found so far, but there are, that option is there as well to play split screen or online. And look, it's going to be a very tough platinum, particularly for starring all the events, and very time consuming, I think. But perhaps something to look out for.
Did you actually say the name of the
Yeah,
game?
sorry, Overpass. This game is called Overpass.
Overpass, okay. I missed that because you said, like, because it's a racing game, and then I never heard you say the name of the game. I guess I just missed it.
Yeah, yeah. So it's by this Big Ben Interactive. So they do a lot of rally games. These people, I mean, they do a lot of racing games in general, but rally. So this is not a massive stretch for them, but they've sort of been.
Wait, Big Ben developed it? Because 'Cause they're mostly like, they published the last Sherlock Holmes
Yeah, sorry,
games.
they published it in Interactive. Yeah, the developer
Okay.
Zordex AB, but they did again, this is a real throw out for the listeners here. You probably never came across this game, but they did a game called Aquamoto Racing Utopia a couple of years ago, which was a jet ski racer that look, it had some really tough. It wasn't easy at all. It had some really tough time trials in it. So this developer is used to making tougher games in the racing, and also sort of, I suppose, different sort of games. And it really is that. But it's the sort of game, as I said, that you could get stuck very early on. So it might be worth checking out some gameplay to see if that interests you. And then look, I'll just throw out this because I am playing a bit of a JRPG at the moment, and I'm playing this Arc of Alchemist. So this is by Compile Hearts, the developer. So this, like, I don't know where this sits, Mindi. It's not Chemco. It's more fleshed out than that, but not much more. So it's technically an RPG. It's tactical, but it's sort of like a hack and slash as well, if you like, or a button masher. It's got really good bones to this game. Like the story, like it's all in Japanese with subtitles in English. The story is good. It's not amazing or whatever, and I've almost come to the end of it, but everything else in it is just not really fleshed out. Like there's only 5 or 6 maps. Yes, the maps are big, but like this style of JRPGs, I mean, it almost has a NEP feel to it at times. You're just grinding resources. You're just whacking things or whatever. The leveling system seems to be out with the game in that you need to get to level 100, but you'll probably finish the game at level 50 because the story is maybe 10 hours, but there's another 15 hours of leveling. There's no side quests or whatever else. There is a city building element to the game, which is sort of cool, and it works on bonuses where you put different things. But again, that's based on grinding to find things to build the stuff. And again, it's not as developed as like if you're thinking Ni no Kuni 2 that had some sort of quests in line with building stuff. This is just literally just place it or move it around so you get the bonus. So look, I don't know, I think it's selling for like 30 or 40 perhaps, so like a 3/4 price-ish sort of game, and that might be a stretch for this game. I feel some of the trophies are bizarre as well, like collecting certain amount of things before you go back, but you don't know how many, so you just have to keep going. And the same with the healing. The game never really explains either how the leveling, how you train yourself so you can boost your leveling. So, if you were to play this, one of my tips would be that to early on access the training menu. I know the guides available actually don't even go into that, which would make the game a lot easier. The game is pretty tough even on normal if you don't level, so that's something to consider as well. But look, it's a fun, like it's a perfect podcast game, Mindy. You can be listening to something while you're playing it. It doesn't require a huge amount of concentration. So that was good. And then, as I said, I'm looking forward to getting into some House Flipper. That should be fun or whatever. I know the Scottish Noob has sung high praises for that game, so we will see. And then, just because we're dragging on here, Mindy, we might skip the new releases. But I went and saw the new Sonic movie yesterday, which was great. It was fantastic and it was lovely, and I almost cried in a few spots. It was a little sad as well, but then happy again. It was. He's so cute, It's like, I don't know. He's sort of bad, but he's good. It was lovely. So anyway, but the most interesting thing at the start, because obviously I don't go and see a lot of younger adult or younger children type movies, is the trailers beforehand, and they showed a trailer for this Mythic Quest. Now I don't know if you remember about this, Mindy. This is the TV show that Ubisoft showed at E3 last year in conjunction with Apple TV Plus were co-founding it or whatever else. In fact, I believe it's an Apple TV Plus exclusive now. So I decided to come home and see if I could watch it, and it is available on Apple Plus in Australia at the moment. Your first year of Apple TV Plus is free. I'm not sure if that's the same in the States, so you're not under no obligation to take it. And I think there's 9 or 10 episodes of this thing, and so basically what it is, it's a comedy, if you like, a look inside a developer. And look, I think it'd be funny if you play MMOs. I would definitely recommend it because the whole thing is based around that they've built this MMO and all the egos involved in it. And Mindy, the first episode is all about a shovel. They want to introduce a shovel into the game, but they're trying to figure out how to microtransaction it, and it's fantastic. It's really over the top, and it's Ubi are definitely taking a shot at themselves as well. But I feel the humor would be lost if you're not a gamer, and I feel the humor might be lost as well if you're not an MMO player. But if you are, I'd recommend checking that out, especially if you can see it for free. The episodes are not hugely long. I think about half an hour each or so. So hopefully that throws some light on that, because that was something that I was interested in when I saw it at E3. I thought, how is this going to work? But now I know. So interesting. So why don't we skip the new releases today, Mindy? And why don't we go?
No,
Oh,
why don't we not? Because I
okay.
actually, there's one thing you didn't mention that I
Yes.
want to ask you about. And you played Mosaic, and I talked about
Yes.
that podcast or two ago.
Yeah, so Mosaic. So we did give the deep and nasty on this, listeners, on the push to plat level cap here. This is a potentially just a trophy game with a turbo controller. So the premise of the game itself, it's a very dark game. It's basically comment. I mean, literally, it's dark in playing it, but also the subject matter is dark. It's a comment on how you're wasting your life. You're not gaining full value out of your life, and predominantly they do this through the use of a mobile phone, being glued to the phone or whatever else, and the messages coming in. So while you do move around and you move through different areas, the premise is on the messages you're getting on the phone, and your life is basically a virtual life or something. So what he's done is all the trophies. It's similar to the guy that did Undertale here. What he's done is all the trophies are tied up in the mini game, this time on the phone. So it's just like a clicker, if you like. So basically, you've just got to keep clicking. You've got to click 1 trillion times. So there's no way you're going to get this without a turbo controller, because clicking. I mean, there are upgrades and things like this that will make the clicking go quicker, but still, it takes 11 hours of clicking with a turbo controller. So gosh knows what that would be like in real time for a human or whatever. But none of the trophies have anything to do with the story, other than that they're a comment on the fact that you're potentially wasting your time and life. But as far as a quick plat, if you're not interested in the story, and you don't have to engage with it, because you can open the phone within the first 10 seconds of the game, and then for the next 11 hours work on the trophies. Basically all the trophies are AFK. You do have to prestige, so that means every hour or two coming back and resetting it, if you like. And if you buy the upgrades, that would take some time. But yeah, so look, I don't know, it's an interesting thing. I'm not sure who they're aiming this game at, because obviously not at trophy hunters, because they're not going to play it. And then I don't know. I'm not sure. It's no Undertale, that's for sure.
That's really
The
interesting.
premise is interesting. Yeah.
And there seems to be a very deliberate move that they're like, if the game's main theme is you're wasting your life, and it gives you trophies that are ultimately time wasting because they're about this mini game, but at the same time, you can AFK it, which means you have time to do something else with your life. That's interesting. I wonder if that was very deliberate, because it feels deliberate.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I don't know. Like, I mean, if you didn't use a turbo controller, you'd have to be there. And I think, the trillion, it's impossible. So I assume they figured that's what would happen, or maybe they didn't. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing, but the problem, I know we talk about games becoming more and more front loaded, and I know this is a dicey issue or whatever else because of the way I play as well. And fully, I admit, the first stack I didn't move past the first 10 seconds. This other stack, I'm actually playing the game as well, and then sometimes AFKing and then playing some more. So I'm seeing more of it. But when you do this, you don't show any of your game to the portion of the market that are buying it for trophies, which is unlike Ratalaika, is unlike Undertale, the guy that self-professed that he doesn't like trophies. It's unlike these developers that we keep complaining about making short games, because you do see some of their game. This is almost like the next level, and the problem is if you didn't play some of the game or read about it, you wouldn't even realize that was the point of the phone and the mini game. So I don't know, like maybe it's a little too highbrow, Mindi, like for what it is. Yeah, I think I've seen this subject matter dealt better on other games, I think. But
Like Stanley Parable.
yeah, like that. I'm thinking of Actual Sunlight on the Vita as well. That was the one I'm thinking. I think the very depression fueled game. Like there's a lot of these elements in this, but it's just It's just done differently. I don't know. I mean, it's probably a perfect game without trophies. I think just maybe maybe to play on PC you'd get more out of it. I'm not sure. And I mean, I know you can play it all on the console, but I just wonder how many people will. I don't know because it'll be a fringe title to start with anyway. So look, we'll see. But look, if it does interest you, as I said, there are two stacks of it, NA and EU. Yeah, and about 11 hours with the turbo if you don't want to engage in the story. So shall we shift because we're running a bit long, Mindy? But look, I think that's okay, and because we have a quicker turnaround this week, why don't we just move straight to the Roberta Williams achievement this week or recognition? Is that okay?
Oh, okay. Well, not a ton. I just, I like to give a shout out to my girl Roberta Williams whenever I can. I'm very proud of
Hmm.
her. I've said before, and I will continue to say, if you are a gamer, kind of the gaming zeitgeist knows certain names like John Romero and Hideo Kojima and things like that. And I think Roberta Williams needs to be in this group of names that you know, even if you don't play their games. And Roberta Williams more or less created the graphic adventure genre in the 80s with
Hmm.
Sierra, with her company Sierra. And the Game Developer Choice Awards, this is the 20th year they've done it. And it's different because it's not, a fan thing. It's actually an industry thing, like the Oscars, so people in the industry are the ones who are voting for these things as opposed to public polls. And they are giving her a Pioneer Award, which recognizes breakthrough tech and game design milestones, specifically for King's Quest again, and for basically creating the graphic adventure genre. Seems weird that it took 20 years. I suspect this might have something to do with when the Williamses left the gaming industry. They kind of just got on a yacht and just sailed the world. Like they kind of just disappeared for a really long time.
Sounds perfect.
And I suspect that because they kind of resurfaced in 2016, 2017 when they got the Lifetime Achievement Award on the Video Game Awards. I kind of suspect, and I hope so, but I kind of suspect now they're like, oh, we found them. Like they're willing to kind of come back into this industry to at least talk a bit. They're not going to develop games anymore, of course not. But I kind of suspect that's where this is kind of heading. Between the that and then they did the scholarship, remember? What was it? The Vancouver Film School did the Roberta Williams scholarship for
Hmm. Hmm.
female game designers. I suspect it's basically because they've resurfaced that we're seeing more and more of this, which is great. I love her. I really do.
I think this stuff is good too because I think they're starting to do some good work in game preservation, and recognizing through Game Awards and things they're recognizing the people working now, but for it to continue to be taken as a serious medium, it has to recognize the pioneers in different genres, and build that sort of lore and history as well. So that's how these things are done. So that I agree with you. I think it's fantastic, and I believe that there's a possibility in the future we will be delving more into this sort of a topic here. So I'm looking
Maybe.
forward. Yeah, I'm looking forward to
Maybe
that.
maybe I've found someone. Maybe I'm waiting to hear back from him about a certain day and time.
Yeah, let's
Maybe.
let's wait and see, listeners.
Spoiler alert, maybe more than one. CJ doesn't even know that.
Look, I don't know. I don't know. I'm looking forward to it though. So look, why don't we jump over to spam of the week, Mindy? Now there looks like there's a few contenders here this week. Now, I'll throw one out only because I think you might like this one. And yes, it's spam, but look, it's delightful. And this is Bucket Night. You can play this on PS4 or Vita. I'm not sure that this is a cross-buy. You'll have to check that, listeners.
I don't think it is. I remember looking at this. I don't think this is a cross buy.
No, it may not be. Look, it's not your 10-minute plat, but it's I mean if you're a platforming sort of player, you can probably do this in an hour. If you're not a platforming player, it's going to take a little bit longer, maybe 2 hours. I haven't finished it yet, but I haven't found it hugely difficult, and it's fun. You get a trophy for completing every level. That's all, and then there's a few miscellaneous for buying things from the shop and getting the gold, which you'll get as you go. And look, the levels start off super short, but then they get longer, but they're not too long, 3 or 4 minutes, I think, even if you're not good at a level. And there's a nice mix of sort of levels with enemies and stuff, and then just sort of almost like bonusy levels, if you like, with money and stuff. So it's a cute little platformer, but still spam, I suppose.
Let's see. I will throw out Guard Duty. I believe this is a point and click. In which case, I need to figure out who published it so I can see if I can snag a review code to write a walkthrough for. Because it looks like a comedic point and click.
We've got a Super Destronaut Land Wars. So of course there was the Super Destronaut. That was a fun arcade shooter, if you like, twin stick shooter. But now it looks like they're bringing out the next version, the land version, or whatever else. So look, that'll be if it's like the other one, that should be quite straightforward.
I tentatively want to say Red Death because there's a lot of silver and gold in here. But then I get down to the high score trophies, so maybe tentatively spam.
And then it looks like this Paper Beast. It says a lot of these trophies are tied up in Sandbox. Sandbox is always a good word for spam gamers. So we'll have to wait and see on that. But look, there's quite a bit there. This is the last sort of week before the big games start to hit. So we shall see. We should definitely see. Why don't we go across, Mindi, to the Push2Plat Platinum Club shout out?
Sounds good.
We've got quite a few here. You're kicking us off, of course, with 592, The Sims 4. De Easty. Now, he's slipped a late one in as well. So he's got number 630, Sniper Ghost Warrior Contracts. Very cool game. Enjoyed it more than I thought I would. Number 631, Ghost Recon Breakpoint. That's a massive game as well. My goodness. Number 632, Blair Witch, creepy walking sim with many collectibles and missables. Does this Blair Witch game interest you, Mindi? It is a walking sim of sorts.
Not hugely. I know you have to play it twice, which is never good. I say never, but it's not on my backlog. But if it becomes a free plus game, maybe.
Yeah, there's all chance. I mean, if you're on the Xbox side, that game is on Game Pass, has been since launch, so you can check it out. It's a funny mix of horror and annoyance. I found it'd be interesting to see what Easty thought. So there are some really good horror elements when the enemies, I suppose, you're under that pressure. But there's also puzzle mechanics with bending time, moving time around, which just takes you out of it. I thought, and that wasn't in the films either. So I don't know. It's a bit of a stretch. I think perhaps it might have been better without that. I don't know, or maybe just for me. But by all means, check it out, see what you think, listeners. Redbeard Rick, number 121, Final Fantasy VIII. Number 122, Reverie, which is a beautiful little New Zealand IP.
Oh, that's one I haven't heard in a while.
Yeah, it's a lovely little RPG. Great for the Vita, that one too.
It's a fun game. It's basically Link to the Past, but smaller and set in New Zealand.
Yeah. And number 123, 124, Gun Bar Super Strikers. So that is the Rata Plat of last week, which is interesting. Turn-based soccer RPG-esque game. Then Dat1 Seagull, this is lovely, Mindi, 215, 216, 217. Now, I always say this wrong, so why start saying it right now? The Mochi Boy?
Mochi Boy.
Oh, there you go. Good. And that's 3 Vitas for him on that. So he's wiped out the Vitas. Well done, sir. Dino Raw, number 896, Grisland, 20 minutes of fun-filled goodness. We didn't talk about that today, but that is... Look, it's a spam plat for sure, but it's quite an enjoyable little platformer, and there's some good guides around. It's the sort of game that if you're going to stack, it's perfect to do, as we talked about earlier, one after the other. Use the guide first, and you're going to remember everything. It's not it's easy to remember. Yeah, it has. I don't want to spoil it, Mini, but it has a fun little. The final boss, final boss you need to play up to, has a fun battle mechanic-y thing. The people who have played it will know what I mean, but I'll leave it there. I haven't actually seen that before in a game, which it was pretty cool. It's very short, but still pretty cool. Zador VP, number 453, Kingdom Hearts, Birth by Sleep, Mix, PS4. So I think this is a brag here, Mindi, I'm not sure. Did everything on critical level. Level 45 was enough to beat everything, just as I did on PS3.
That's a brag.
Congratulations. Yeah, I thought
but
so.
Zador and Easty, they don't come to play. Like they're pretty serious.
That's right. Yeah. So he's all PS4 Kingdom Hearts Plats done, not counting regional stacks. Yeah. No, look, I know. I mean, that Ghost Recon Breakpoint, that's a massive game with its collectibles for Easty. So look, yes, they're on another level from us, Mindi. But this is what you can do when you don't record a podcast every week. Obviously. And then we've got Scottish Noob. Congratulations, number 345, Need for Speed Heat. And I know that you did enjoy that game from what I read. So look, I thought it was good too. So that's excellent. And then number 346, House Flipper. And I know you enjoyed this because you would said you would do it over and over and over again. It's good praise. Ed the Shed 2014. Number 70, Love Clear. It's a Japanese visual novel romance adventure.
I saw that on your profile.
Yes. The funny thing is, I was very tired last night and I made a mistake somewhere. So I need to go back and figure out where the mistake is. And the most amusing thing is it's a 30-minute game, but I'm not sure where I made the mistakes. Maybe we'll just leave it and forget it. Who knows? And then just in the nick of time is now, this will be a pronunciation nightmare. So I apologize, sir. Zoutje, which is Zoutje. So we will find out how to pronounce that better for next time. I apologize. Number 25, Uncharted 3 Drake's Deception Remastered. It's a lot there, Mindy.
There is a lot there. I wonder, did they do the DLC trophies too? Like the speed run and the Donut Drake? The stuff that I didn't want to do?
Yes, I see he has 100%. So that means it's PS4. That means he would have to have done that, doesn't it? Yes.
That's true. Good job.
Congratulations. Said that. I believe you're a new member to the Push2Platinum community. If it interests you, listeners, to get your platinums read, it's a free community. You can jump on the PS4, join, post your plats, and if you like, post a little comment like some of our members do, and we'll read it out if you wish to share. So look, I think, Mindy, is there anything else?
I think that's it. I think we went a little longer than we wanted to.
Yeah, look, these things happen. So just in closing out, if you're looking for even more content this week, I did do a guest appearance, and I thank them very much. The Loot Bros. It's very challenging to get an invite on that show. It's only taken like 3 years or something, I think, to get one. But look, it's obviously
I
different.
still don't have an invite, so where's mine?
You're 2.5 years to wait. It's just more of Mindy, you'd love it. It's just like 3 or 4 white guys all talking in a room, so you can imagine the sort of humor or whatever else. It was very enjoyable or whatever. They looked at ideal lineups coming forward for the next systems and stuff like this. So if you're looking for that, you can check out the Loot Bros and Resident Daryl's other podcasts. Also, a massive shout out to the Game Stuff podcast, Kalai, one of the hosts, and Roberto. They're both over in PAX East at the moment, making connections, doing wonderful things, and helping all the podcasts out. So I want to thank you as well for the great work you did over there, and that we will see the benefits for as well, I am sure. So thank you very much. With that in mind, Mindy, I'm done. Where can we find you if we're looking for you?
Twitter at themindisacity.
And if you're trying to find us, or if you want to reach out for us, we're on Twitter at push2plat. The Discord will be in the show notes, as will all Mindy's information. Don't forget, don't only support us here, but also support her. She's doing an amazing job with her guide writing. It's helping every single one of us every single day. And you can find out how to do that in the show notes at the base here. So with that in mind, we're done. Hopefully we'll get this out to you super soon. May the trophies be kind, the plats kinder. Thank you, Mindy.
Bye.
Push2Plat podcasts are weekly brought to you through the wonderful support of all our fabulous, awesome human Patreons. We'd especially like to thank our Patreon producers, Sprunky, Mr. Scottish Noob, and Zador VP.